What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Chats with the Freak. My name is Emmy, and we took a little week off last week. I had some stuff going on, but we're back and ready to go. We're ready to kick March in the face. I'm very excited about the artists that I have on tonight, but I also kind of wanted to tease a couple artists that I have coming on for the rest of March. I will have Gina and the Eastern Bloc back on at some point. I will have Paul Fig, who is a music producer and engineer, on towards the end of the month. And next week, I'm pretty sure next week we have Royal Honey back on. I had Eric Roger on, who's their guitar player, but I'm going to have him and a couple of the other guys from the band on talking about their new single. So I just kind of wanted to tease that for the month of March. I meant to do that last week, but I had some personal issues going on, so we ended up skipping last week. But the lovely lady I have on tonight actually was supposed to be last week and was really cool and rescheduled with me. Jen Janet, she is based out of the California area. She was in Boston for a while, kind of moved around a little bit. We'll get into that in a second. Alternative artist, and I've been wanting to get her on the podcast for a while, so I'm really excited to have her on, and let's bring her in.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello,
Hey,
hello.
so we were talking a little bit before we kind of went on. So you moved right before the pandemic, and I moved like right towards the end of the pandemic. So I kind of found that kind of interesting because I just recently moved, and we're kind of hopefully getting to the tail end of this. So
yes,
yeah, moving during a pandemic is not 10 out of 10. I don't recommend, but
yeah, it was an interesting time. I moved like right before, and I moved across the country. So, yeah, also don't recommend. But I didn't really get to like settle in and get to know people around the area right away because like everything shut down like a month after I moved. So.
yeah. That's the one hard thing because there's not really like the bar scene or the club scene really right now. It's starting to open up a little bit more on the East Coast. I'm not really sure where you guys are standing in California, but everything over here is starting to slowly open back up a little bit. I actually have a gig on Friday, which I'm really excited about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a lower capacity seated social distance and stuff like that. But I'm very excited to see that there's some at least socially distant shows going on and stuff like that, at least on the East Coast. Like I said, I'm not sure where California is kind of standing. I know you guys were kind of bad there for a little bit about a month ago.
Yeah, it's getting better, but things are very strict. Things were very closed down for a long time. Now we can go to like restaurants and stuff, but it's all outdoors. It's just warm, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, I mean, you can't really go to the gym, but I heard that that stuff is going to be opening very soon. And actually, the county that San Francisco is in is actually doing better, and then the county that Oakland is in is not doing so great. So that's my county. So my county is still pretty shut down, but the bigger city, San Francisco, I guess, is actually doing pretty well. They're going to open up soon.
Right. Yeah, hopefully that happens. And like I said, I know California got kind of bad. I have a lot of friends that live out there, and I heard that it was pretty bad there for a minute. But hopefully, I've been seeing a lot of good things in the news finally, and
yeah,
hopefully we're going to the point where we can finally start seeing some live music pop up. You know.
Yeah, I know LA was really bad. I drove down there at one point to visit a friend, like at their house, but then we just like we didn't do anything after that. Like we didn't go anywhere. You can't really at the time you couldn't really do anything. It was really bad in LA.
Yeah. Everyone, from everything I heard, it was pretty scary out there, which is definitely intimidating. But like I said, hopefully we're getting to the tail end of this, and hopefully everything will kind of open back up.
Totally.
For sure. So I know you have a bunch of singles that you kind of have been putting out recently, and the newest one's called Garden. And I wanted to kind of backtrack for a second. You released one called Headache back in February. I thought the video for that was so dope, and I really wanted to talk to you about that before we got into the single that you just put out. I thought the song was really cool, but the video for it was so dope, and I kind of wanted to ask you about how that was kind of, I guess, put together.
Thank you. Yeah. So the video for that took place in like a mannequin warehouse. which I was really excited to find. It's actually in Oakland, California. It's called Mannequin Madness, and it's a small business. It's also a Black-owned business. If you're in the Oakland area, definitely check it out. But it's basically a company that has space for shooting videos, shooting photos. They also have like a regular photo studio that looks, more normal. And part of that, like the part of the video that has a white background, that was also shot there too. But they also sell mannequins and they resell them. So like it's kind of like almost like recycling plastic type of thing, like so that there's not a lot of plastic waste. So anyway, I found this business and I was like, this is so cool. And I've always wanted to do a music video with creepy mannequins just because I'm weird and I've always wanted to do that. And so I hit them up and it was really fun. We basically had free reign of the place and we could use any of the mannequins that we wanted to. And then I hired a contortionist from the San Francisco area to also be in the video. And I just kind of wanted something that, wasn't me because all of my videos have me in them. So I just wanted someone, something else to kind of set this one apart. And having all the mannequins, look like people, I was like, okay, well, what if I had someone who is obviously human and can do like really weird body movements and kind of have this like, juxtaposition between like having the mannequin that's just like not moving and then having her doing these weird movements. I just thought that would look really cool. So her name is Honey Bunna, and she is also in the burlesque scene in San Francisco, which I hope I can go to one of her shows someday because those aren't happening right now.
Yeah.
But I love all that stuff, and she was great. She was awesome to work with. It was also a socially distanced set and everything. She had the mask on the whole time, and I did too. But I'm really glad that you liked the video. It was really fun to shoot. Everybody was super nice. We just shot it with we just had one camera, one gimbal. Pretty easy. We brought a lot of lights though. So we set up I think there were 3 or 4 lights. I think we had 2 soft boxes. It was just me and one other person filming to kind of keep it small and socially distanced and everything, but I edit it myself. And that's kind of what I've been trying to do, especially now, with the pandemic. Working with other people is awesome, but it's not super feasible in some ways right now. So I've been trying to edit and direct all of my own videos, and so far it's going really well. I'm glad that you liked it. It's a lot of work, but I really like doing it.
Yeah. No, the video turned out really good. I thought it was really, I like the concept of it, and I thought it was edited very well. So definitely kudos to you for that. I thought it was really cool. So I guess getting to the single that you just recently put out, Garden, how did that kind of, because like I said, I know you are working on you have a slew of singles coming out. Are you leading up to a record, or are these just kind of singles that you want to put out together?
So these are more singles that I wanted to put out together. I do have an EP in the works right now. I was not actually planning on re-releasing these singles as an album at the moment. Just because they're already released, they're already out there. I know a lot of people do that, but I was like, well, most people just stream it anyway. So yeah. I think for me, when I can play shows, I'll probably release I'll have maybe one CD, a physical CD or something that has all the singles, or maybe I'll re-release it special edition or something, and I'll release a little mini album with all the singles. But I just want to keep doing different things. I want to keep exploring new things. So right now I don't have plans to release them as an album or on a future album. I'm just going to release an EP that's all different songs. So I do have plans to release a 3-track EP, and I also have another concept that I'm writing right now that's probably going to be 6 songs. So there's a lot in the works. but I want to definitely focus on like new stuff.
Right, right. No, that's really cool though. It's always cool to, I think that's one of the bright spots, I guess, of the pandemic. Even though, like I said, hopefully we're coming to the end of it, but at least there was time for some creativity and some time to have multiple things in the works and be able to kind of devote some sort of mental energy to a project like that, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, for sure. So, kind of getting back to Garden, how did that song, I guess, kind of come together? I kind of briefly watched the video. I thought it was cool. I had like a cool, like, alternative flow to it, which a lot of your songs do. I'm not saying all your songs sound alike because they don't, but it had like that definitely, like, it definitely sounded a lot like you, if you know what I mean by that. And I really
Thank
dug
you.
it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I like taking things that are supposed to be like pretty, stereotypically pretty or like nice to look at and making them unsettling, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know why, I don't know what that says about me, but I really, really like doing that. So for my garden, I wanted to, well, the concept of the song was using like a garden as the metaphor um, for like when you feel kind of like suffocated and overwhelmed, like if someone is giving you too much love, for example, or like if someone is giving you too much, um, like trying to help you grow, kind of.
Okay.
Maybe you don't want that.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like, you know, you can water a flower and give it your love and attention and, you know, try to teach the flower, try to help it grow, all that stuff. But then you can also overwater the flower and kill it. So that was kind of the idea there, like just feeling very overwhelmed, like maybe not measuring up or something. And I wanted to use the garden as like that metaphor, basically. So we have in the video, I'm in like a very pretty rose garden for most of it, um, and then the other like one of the other scenes in the video is like um, me looking very like there's like red lighting and I'm looking very sinister and dark and angry and you know all that stuff. So that was really fun to do because the garden is like probably like 5 minutes down the road from where I live. So that was really easy. And then the scenes with
Yeah.
the fountain were also right outside my apartment. So it was like it's probably my favorite video that I've ever done. I really like the way it came out. Like you said, I'm glad you said it kind of looked like it felt like me because that's how I feel too. I like that more heavier vibe. I feel like that song is like the best representation so far of what I want to do and like put out in the future. Um, Kind of like having that heavier vibe, but also keeping, you know, like lighter, more melodic vocals and things like that. Um, but yeah, I would say currently that's definitely my favorite thing that I've put out so far. So
Right, right. Yeah, no, I definitely dug it, and I'm glad you got what I was trying to say because you're definitely your music does not sound anything alike, necessarily track to track. But I feel like there's a lot of bands like if you or artists like if you hear like Alice in Chains, like all of their stuff definitely
Mhm.
doesn't sound alike. But you hear like Rooster or Wood, you know who it is just by like the
Yeah.
riff or Lane's vocals or Williams' vocals or whatever the case is. You know who it is, and I definitely feel that way with the music that I've heard because I've been following your music for a long time. I think we've been connected on social media for a few years now, and finally I got you on the show. But we've been connected for a while, so I've been following your music, and you definitely have a flow, and you definitely have a sound about you. So yeah, I definitely felt like Garden fit into all of that. So I thought that was really cool.
Thank you.
So I mentioned that earlier, kind of to backtrack for a second, you moved from Boston to California. So I kind of wanted to ask, what was it like, I guess, starting in the Boston scene? Because I don't really know anything about Boston. I keep thinking now that I'm like, I guess, closer-ish, like I'm about like 4 or 5 hours from Boston now. I keep thinking
Mhm.
about going up there to do like scenic shooting someday, because I'm a photographer too. So I've
Mhm.
been like thinking about that. I always kind of wanted to like, I don't know, like Boston's one of those cities I've always like heard of and I've heard people talk and I've met a lot of people from there, but I'm always kind of like, I wonder what the music scene, obviously not in a pandemic, but what the scene's like and what it was kind of like starting, I guess, your music career up there.
Yeah, well, Boston has a lot of music schools, so there's a lot of really amazing music in Boston from like both local artists and bigger artists. And there have been a lot of artists that you probably know. There's been a lot of artists that made it, so to speak,
Yeah.
out of Boston. Um, I've noticed that Boston is more well known for tech death, like technical death metal,
Hmm.
progressive rock. Um, I know in Boston there's some like indie rock bands too, but I was never really in that scene quite enough. So for me, like going solo, I didn't really I feel like I like don't really have anywhere to fit in, so to speak, because like I'm not like a super technical artist. Like I feel like I'm making more like I feel like alternative is definitely the word for it.
Hmm.
I like to blend a lot of genres. Like some of my songs have a lot of electronic parts, but definitely there's always like guitars. I like heavier guitars too sometimes. So um, like I think that if I was to continue in Boston, I might have some trouble finding where I like fit in. But honestly, I think that's kind of an issue anywhere. Like in a local scene, there's a
Yeah.
lot of bands that will sound the same because you're playing music with your friends and like you're like, oh yeah, I like that band. I like that band too. And then like your music might end up sounding similar to each other.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, obviously. But just I think that happens a lot in scenes like that. Um, so I personally, I really like the Boston scene a lot. I'm also in a progressive rock band called Mimesis, and it's definitely proggy. It's very technical. I write all the lyrics and all the vocal parts, but I do not write the music. I don't know if you know the band Beast of Nod, but Will from the Beast of Nod on Facebook, his name is Gore Blaster. He writes most of the music for that
Okay,
band.
cool.
Um, and he also writes most of the music for my band, Mimesis. So when I'm not doing solo stuff, that's the band that I'm doing stuff with. And we were actually going to go on tour last March, and we
Uh,
actually had a few dates already scheduled. There was going to be a Boston date and a Connecticut date, and like a lot of other stuff. And obviously that fell through, but we will try to do that in the future. But back to your other question though. Yeah, the Boston scene is really cool. It's great if you really like technical music, especially metal. There's a lot of metal. One issue though is that because it's more a place where there's a lot of schools, there's a lot of people that move away after like 4 or 5 years. So, like the Boston scene that I came to know, a lot of the people are moving out of there, myself included.
mhm.
So even other people that I know who like went to Berkeley and stuff, like they all kind of move away. So it's like the scene changes drastically, I would say, like every 5 years or so.
Okay.
Um, but I mean, last year, before everything happened, I think it was great.
Yeah, yeah. No, the pandemic definitely messed with everything, and I think any music scene that's worth a shit, just to fucking flat out just say that, any music scene that's worth a shit, I think goes through a change every couple of years. I think
Mhm.
if you leave for however long, you leave for 10 years and you come back, and it's the same people doing the same thing at the same level, I just feel like that's such a shitty scene because nobody's trying to do anything.
Mhm.
So I think that's kind of a good thing that like the scene that you might have known in a year or two might not be the same scene. I think that's good,
Mhm.
and I think that's room for growth because there's a lot of bands that I'm not gonna like necessarily call out scenes that I've been a part of because obviously doing touring photography over the last however long I've been doing it, I got to know bands in Cleveland and I got to know bands in
Mhm.
Columbus and kind of in Pittsburgh and different spots in Ohio and stuff like that. And you get to kind of not necessarily be a part of it, but you get to see the scenes and kind of get the, I guess, feel of it necessarily. And just kind of seeing how complacent, I guess, local bands can get in their scene and just
Yeah.
stay in that. So I think that's a good thing when I see bands that get out and kind of go do stuff. Not necessarily, they might not blow up and be Metallica, but at least they're trying to go out and do something different, do something kind of cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely think that some bands just get too complacent, chilling in their local scenes. It's like, yeah, we're good now. Like, there's not anything wrong
Mm.
with that, but I think that it can definitely stunt your growth, not even just as a band moving up, that's for lack of a better term, moving up, it'll stunt your growth mentally too. Because I'm sure that like when you went from Boston to California, you probably were in a totally different mindset now because you're in California and writing some stuff that you might not have written if you were back in Boston. You know what I mean? And vice
Mhm.
versa.
Yeah, I think it just depends what you want. Like, some people they start off being like, I want to sign to a label and like do all this stuff, and then, life just like your life might look completely different in 2 or 3 years, and then or you might even research that and figure out like, oh, you don't actually want to sign to a label for various reasons, or whatever it is. Like, I know for me when I started, the first band I was ever in was called Blind Revision. The band was mostly based out of Rhode Island, so very close to Boston. Um, and we played all around the Northeast part of the United States and stuff. And it was awesome. Like, we had a lot of really cool opportunities. I feel like we got to a level where like we couldn't really go any further, like in our scene, if that makes sense. Like, we
Yeah.
would have had to like do something else. Like, we would have had to do like a national tour or something, like um, to kind of like move up, so to speak.
Right.
But anyway, my point was just like, I remember like when I started in that band and I knew absolutely nothing about touring. I knew nothing about shows. I didn't know anything about record labels, and like now I've done a lot of research on that stuff, and um like signing to a label is something that I think a lot of people think they want, and then they do research on it and they realize like maybe they don't want it. And um yeah, it's just like it's really hard to measure success now. Like, it's like, what does that mean? Like, am I successful if I get like 500,000 streams on Spotify, but like I don't have any Twitter followers either? Like, like what does success mean? It's just like very confusing.
Yeah, yeah. I was actually just talking to one of my best friends about this the other day because he kind of was just venting about if he would have known more when he first started and released his first album, how he would have done things differently. And you made a really good point. Like, what really, like, how do you judge success? Back in like the 70s, it was probably like, oh, we're
Mhm.
signed to a label, like this is awesome. But just because you're signed to a label now doesn't mean that it's a big deal. There's some
Yeah.
independent artists that are totally just doing their own thing with no label, no management, nothing, doing better than some of the bands signed to a label. So,
Yeah.
but it's like, how do you judge that? How many albums you sold, like physical copies, or how many streams
Mhm.
you have? Do you release singles more or albums more? It's such a weird time to be in the industry, and the fact that like there's no live shows is just making it harder for everybody right now too.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. It's like I know people that have had like a viral video or something, but then like you go to, their Spotify and they have no streams really, or, they might have like 100,000 Instagram followers, but then like people really aren't buying their music. Like, they're just like social media famous. And like it's just, yeah, it's so confusing. It's like, I think that also you kind of get caught up in the feeling that you need to be popular in a sense, um,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to getting back to figuring out what you really want. Like, what kind of art do I want to make? Um, it's weird. It's a very bizarre feeling. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's very hard to explain, but it's just like, do I do things to get popular, or do I do things to make good art? Like, you kind of, it's almost like you have to do both a little bit and like figure
Yeah.
out, how you want to do that. Because like you said, with no shows too, everyone is, only going to have an audience online. So it's like, what do you focus on? Do you focus on like getting people to watch your YouTube video? Do you focus on doing Twitch or Patreon or whatever? Like, there's just so many different avenues, and there's no one size fits all, like, this is success.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree, and it sucks because like there's no like at a show like you create your art the way that you want it to, And at a show, like you'll, I guess, have that like serotonin or maybe like reassurance of you have people that like it because there's usually people at like some show, no matter what the crowd is, who's headlining, who's not. Somebody's gonna be like, "Oh man, I love your music," like whatever, and you kind of have that
Mhm.
reassurance. Right now, nobody really has that. So like when you're an artist still trying to grow your fan base, it's so hard to kind of, I guess, get that like reassurance that like, oh hey, I'm not a total fuck up, you know,
Mhm.
I'm creating the stuff that I like and people do like it. I just need like, I guess I guess it's hard for artists to get reassurance that there are people out there that like their art right now, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I struggle with that like every single day, honestly. Like I don't know. I'll have people sometimes people message me like, "Oh my god, it's so good. I love this blah blah blah." And then, you go a very long time without any feedback also, especially if you're
Mhm.
going through like a phase where you're just like writing for a while. Like I think there was like 3 or 4 months during the pandemic where I just wasn't really on social media very often. I was just literally writing, so I wasn't like getting any feedback from people or anything, and it's just like yeah, it's just mentally it's a very strange feeling, especially because you can't go out and perform it for people.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's definitely a weird time and hopefully everything will kind of get back to normal and everybody can get back out there and start sharing their music. And I really appreciate you coming on chatting with me tonight.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
yeah, for sure. And everyone go check out it is called Garden, right? Or The Garden.
It's my garden.
My Garden. I felt like I fucked that up twice. I'm so sorry. I will link that in the description. I will not fuck this up again, but thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to link the other video down there too so everyone can go
Thank
check
you.
out the cool mannequin video because that was really rad.
Thanks for having me.
Right. Thank you so much for coming on tonight, Jen. I really appreciate it.